Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Thank you very much for making your way up here in a very timely fashion. I think we had a fantastic set of roundtable discussions this afternoon. 4 great themes, 4 great topics, real great discussions going around the table as I went and listened in. I now have the unenviable task of trying to summarise some of the discussions that happened this afternoon, and before we then hand over to our 2 ministers to give their concluding remarks from what I think you'll agree has been a fantastic day on shared visions for where the UK and Italy can really make the most of the potential of the digital single market. But before I hand over, I will give a few reflections and responses from the fantastic rapporteurs that gave their feedback. So on theme 1, we talked, a lot of the tables talks about Europe as looking to position itself as the #1 place for companies to start up and to grow a business. Now, again, very hard to summarise all the discussions, but the core theme around the tables was this is often about starting with our young people and our young people having strong ideas. The link between students and universities was very much a recurring theme, and how can we really strengthen the relationships between our universities and our companies. The importance of venture capitalists and scientists being involved in this journey is absolutely critical, and a couple of tables spoke about the need for greater international investment and into our universities and to our companies that are spinning out of them. Public funding was a big theme. A bit of one table discussed maybe we need to look more at public funding into universities, and capital markets union and the benefit that brings for our funding environment was a big theme as well. On the regulatory framework and how we should approach that, a lot of common themes right across the tables, which was fantastic. Legal certainty is an absolute must for any company looking to start up or scale up and grow, and it's about how we create those conditions for approaching the market. One quote I had from the table was, companies of the past may not be companies of the future, but that our companies of the past are also adapting and growing, so how we can make sure that ecosystem of new and maturing and older working together is important. Table 3 had a really good 3 Ps for the regulatory framework, which was about partnerships, being proactive in identifying new regulatory issues, and pragmatism in the way that we deal with them going forward. Openness, self-regulation were common themes, particularly appealing to the UK model on the sharing economy. And actually self-regulatory approaches in partnership with regulatory approaches can be can stimulate new parts of economic growth. The GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, came up as an example where actually that's giving businesses the certainty they need now. It has been a difficult period on getting new data rules right, but actually we're in a new period where confidence in how consumer data is used can be absolutely key. On 3, infrastructure and skills, I liked one table said, we have big data, but we need local skills. This is about what people are doing on the ground in their companies and in their local areas. Big theme was the shared responsibility of education providers and companies in educating our workforce, not just now, but for the future. The UK computing curriculum was an example of where this is going really well. But also the acknowledgement that this is about more than just coding. This is about how we overcome the digital skills gap from basic digital skills through to more developed ones and high-end technical skills as well. Retraining, lifelong learning, the role of universities, companies and the wider public sector in working together was a really big theme. And finally, on incentivising take-up of new emerging technology, which I think this adoption point, how we really drill down and get that maturity of digital adoption right across the economy. This isn't just about tech and the companies that I talk to day in, day out. This is about every single part of the economy. And that collaboration between different hubs, different innovation centres, different parts of the economy was a really big recurring theme. One table said proof of concept is critical and legal certainty is critical as part of that. Lots of discussion about tax systems, about examples about tax reliefs and venture capital were also a big theme. And traditional and digital businesses, the divide between those is absolutely draining away, but we want to think about how we accelerate that if we are to get the economic gains that Europe can have internationally. So that was a whistle-stop tour of the rapporteur feedback from today's session. I think the chairs and the rapporteurs and everybody who got involved, some really, really great discussions, and I know we're going to be capturing those discussions and feeding them back into the development of the joint paper going forward. But you've heard enough from me. You want to hear from our two fantastic ministers and what they've learned from today's sessions. So I will first hand over to Sandro Gozi to give your final concluding remarks on today's session, and we will then wrap up from there. But thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much to you all. And I think it was a very fruitful day and very fruitful discussion, and we feel very encouraged to move ahead with our initiative. And certainly, I think that thanks to your contribution, we got enough material to work on a new joint initiative, Italy and the United Kingdom, in view of the Competitiveness Council of the 26th of May, and in order to push and to accelerate the adoption of the basic principles and the implementation of the new EU digital agenda. There are certainly several lessons that I can draw from this day. The first, it is that we need more tools than rules, and certainly this is probably the basic message. I would say it is a golden thread which has united all your interventions, and certainly this is the way we want to go ahead, and this is why we think that we have to encourage, to give incentive, but not to pretend to orientate. You have to go digital along your path. Certainly for us, the digital choice is not an option. And as it's not an option, we want to encourage, we want to see what are the several incentives to let you go along that path. That can be a tax incentive, regulatory incentive, this kind of instrument. The second, that of course we have to reduce the legal fragmentation. It has been mentioned on several issues, from the need of start-up and scale-up to the need of free circulation of data in the health sector. It is clear that, we want to be freely to circulate freely with our health data. It is clear that it is a very good example that has been mentioned in our discussion. It is clear that if you got a too fragmented storage approach in the different member states, you cannot enjoy your freedom of circulating with your data on your health. And this is exactly the basic fundamental political message that we have to send around when we talk about the European digital single market. We want a Europe which multiply opportunities, not constraints. And I think that the basic philosophy, and the philosophy which unites the British and the Italian government around this, is exactly to do this. We don't want to multiply constraints. We want to reduce fragmentation, and we want to multiply opportunities. And then, of course, it's the free choice of each single startup, small and medium enterprise, big manufacturer to exploit, to decide to exploit the opportunity that Europe and we in Europe we have to offer. The third message, that it is, after all, the feature of this day is to work together, private and public sector. We need to really organize a partnership for digital in Europe, and I think that a day like this is the best way of really getting the basic input in order to not to go along the wrong path. And the last message, and I conclude, it is, I would resume with the message, don't get old too soon. In the sense that it is clear that we have to develop a future-proof legislation, and we have to work in Europe thinking globally. So we have also be in line and online with the global standards which are developing around the world, and this is exactly one of the main objectives that our two governments will aim in Europe in the building of the digital single market. So thank you very much, and now it's to Lucy.
Thank you very much, Sandro. I mean, first of all, I wanted to say I've had a wonderful visit and a wonderful day. Sometimes you do these things, people look quite cross, but my impression is that for those of you who've stood the course and are still here, there seems to be a fair degree of happiness around. So I'm grateful for that, and I think it's because it has been a very good and very interesting day in all sorts of different ways. I think we've made good progress in advance of next week's Competitiveness Council, when we will be working together on all of these issues, and of course in the run-up to our own presidency next year in 2017, where I'm going to take lots of lessons from Sandro, because he's done it all before. And I think the four sort of broad headings of the joint paper turned out to be good ones. So that was the business environment, the need to help people to start up and scale up, the need for a dynamic framework of regulation, not too much regulation, sometimes even self-regulation, but knowledgeable, well researched with business, for example, who might get affected, and consumers, but also business collaboration. That's obviously been a very good example today of business collaboration. I think we've all agreed that skills and infrastructure are completely critical issues in this whole area, and I think we've gone away with some good ideas, which the wonderful Charlotte summarized for us. And then, you know, finally, the incentives so that everybody embraces the digital single market. And I've gone away with the notion of getting digital into the culture, because actually, funnily enough, it's sort of a broader job than business than I think I'd realized when I got on the plane yesterday to come to the wonderful Roma. But I'd like, as I'm the last speaker, to say some big thank yous. Obviously, I'd like to thank the Minister Gozi for his collaboration for this event, for all the work that our teams have done together in the last 9 months. It's obviously been extremely useful. I hope it can continue. I'd like to invite you back, as it were, as you like football, to do an away match. But I think in this area, everyone is the winner. So it's not UK-Italy at football. And I'm sure that these conversations will have a big impact in the UK and in Italy, but more important in moving forward the digital single market of the European Union. Thank you all very much.
That wraps things up for today's session. Thank you so much for attending. I'm sure there is opportunity for networking and extra stuff around. I'm looking at the organisers, but thank you once again, and look forward to taking forward discussion. Thank you.
See you in London. Yeah, thank you very much indeed.